Today, I'm talking about grow lights, and I'm going to be talking from the standpoint that this is for seed starting. I'm not going to be approaching this from grow lights for like house plants, flowering plants, because we could get into a lot more technicality. There are some differences, but we are talking about grow lights today for seed starting. My name is Scott. I am with the Douglas Sharpie office, and my contact information is right up there. And so if you have any questions, you can shoot me an email or give me a call or whatnot. But we are talking about grow lights. And I have quite a few different slides that have commandeered photographs from different vendors. So this is just our standard statement that we are going to be, that this is not endorsements or whatnot. It's all up there, blah, 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 all the fine print. When I talk about grow lights, or when you go look at grow lights, you're going to see about 3 terms that constantly show up on the package. And that's going to be watts, lumens, and kelvins. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what these terms actually mean. The first one is wattage. Wattage is a measure of, it's a unit of measurement for the electricity that is being used by the light. We used to buy lights based on wattage. We would go to the store, and the more watts that we would have, the brighter the light. And this was mainly for incandescent lights. Technology has drastically improved in the last 15 to 20 years on lighting. And so when we go to look at lights now, we're not going to look at wattage for the brightness of the light, but we're going to look at wattage just for the energy consumption. Here's just a handy dandy nice little chart that shows you that a 40-watt bulb, incandescent, and a 9-watt compact fluorescent light are going to produce the same amount of lumens. And I'll talk to you here in just a second about lumens. And then you can see on the bottom that it's much more efficient. The compact fluorescent is much more efficient than your typical incandescent. When we move to LED lights that we'll talk about here a little bit on, the energy use becomes much more efficient. So we're no longer shopping for lights based on wattage, we're shopping for lights based on lumens. So what is a lumen? And the best way to describe a lumen is if we could package light, if we could capture it and put it in a nice little container like a coffee cup, that would be called a lumen. A lumen is a measurement of light, and the more lumens that you have, the brighter the light. And here's just a nice little chart to give you a point of reference, because it's hard to think about a lumen. A single birthday candle produces 1 lumen. A 40-watt incandescent light bulb, about 450 lumens. And then when we get to the car headlight, not the halogen headlights, but the traditional car headlight, we get about 1,500 lumens. So that kind of gives you a point of reference to the brightness of the actual light. And we all know this, we have seen it, we have started seeds, that the further away the light, our plants are going to start stretching to that light source. And this is because for the light intensity drops exponentially as you move away from the light source. So if you have a light that's producing about 1,000 lumens, like we have here on this slide, it's going to give you 1 foot, you're going to get 1,000 lumens. But if you move it to 2 feet, you're going to get down to 250 lumens. So it drops pretty quickly. And this is light that is hitting the surface of the plant, the surface of the container. So this is the amount of light that is actually reaching that surface. Oops. So what do our plants need? To start seeds successfully, they want bright to medium light source. So bright light in the term of lumens is 60,000 lumens. That's a lot of birthday candles. So when we're thinking about it, bright light is about 60. Medium light ranges between 20 and 50 lumens. Low light is below 12,000 lumens. The sun during the day at noon produces about 125 lumens, 125,000 lumens of light. So what does this mean? How are you going to be applying it? And I'll talk to you here in a minute about that. But the next and last term I want to talk about is Kelvin. Now, Kelvin isn't a chipmunk. It is a measurement that we are using for the color of the light or the temperature. And when we refer to temperature, we're not referring to the actual, like how hot, how cold a light is actually. It's how red or blue the light is going to be. And on this slide right here, we have a grow light that has 32 watts, and that it's producing, what is it, 6,400 kelvins. So this light is producing a little bit of blue light, but it's only producing 1,800 lumens, so not a lot of light for seeds. When we are looking at seed starting, we like it to be a tad on the blue side. That's going to help keep the plant a little bit more robust, a little bit more sturdy and stocky. So we want grow lights for seed starting to be around between that 5,000 kelvins and 6,400 kelvins. And I was looking up to help give people a little bit more reference to what Kelvin and what it actually looks like. And this is just a nice slide of the different color, the Kelvins. Again, plants want that between for seed starting between 5 and 6,400 kelvins. So let's talk about some of these different types of grow lights. I like to use this slide because if we want to produce around 50,000 lumens, if we are trying to replicate a full sun location, we would need 84 incandescent lights. I don't know who has 84 lamps that could actually put this much light out. You could look at fluorescent lights. You would need 42 T12 lights. Or you could go all the way up to the high pressure sodium, which is about 400 watts. You would only need one of those. So as you can see, not all lights are equal when we're wanting to produce a lot of light for our plants, but it's just kind of a nice slide to give you an idea of how much it would need to produce 50,000 lumens. So high pressure sodium. These are some of the lights that we might be familiar with. Depending on your gymnasium light, this is probably what most of our gymnasium lights used to be. High pressure sodiums. They take about 10 to 15 minutes to warm up. They start out really cool. It takes some time for them to warm up. And once they get to that full brightness, they're producing a lot of light. The downside to this is that you need a lot of different equipment for high pressure sodium lights. You need special light fixtures because we are working with about 400 watts. We can't use plastic. We can't use a plastic fixture. We need to move over to a ceramic fixture because we don't want to melt anything. We need a special ballast, so that way we can do the energy conversion, timers, hooks, a hood, the actual light bulb. This unit here is going to run you about $300. It's kind of expensive. It's not necessarily the best for seed starting, but it is something that's becoming more of a relic, and that I just wanted to mention because some of us might actually have it. We have these in the Omaha office. They work great, but they do have a drawback because they produce, get my technology working, a lot of heat. this is something that we need to think about, is that when it comes to heating or using high pressure sodium, we need to worry about how are we going to manage the heat. Uh, our tomato growers have really advanced this technology that you need to vent it. And when we talk about, there's a question in there about seed starting. I'll talk about that here in just a couple of minutes. So we will get that in there. These do have advantages, but yes, we roasted all of our trial plants because we forgot we had heat mats underneath them. We had these high pressure sodium lights above it, and it didn't turn out too good for our seedlings. We had to start them twice because drought happens very frequently when we have these type of lights. Two plates. This is what most of us are familiar with. This is what a lot of us have worked with over the years. These are shop plates. These are they're either 2 foot or 4 foot in length. We have 3 different sizes: the T12, the T8, and the T5. There's advantages and disadvantages to all 3 of these lights. The T12 is your basic shop light. They produce good, bright light if we're trying to light up a space. It's not necessarily the best light for seed starting. The T8, which is in the middle, a little bit more energy efficient than our T12, and it produces some better light. But the light that's going to be best out of these 3 is the T5. We're going to get good high output, good amounts of lumens, and it's a little bit more energy efficient. So if you have to choose between these 3, the T5 is going to be the better option. Now the T8 and the T12, those light bulbs can be used interchangeably, but you cannot use a T5 light in a T12 fixture. It just doesn't work. There's some engineering that needs to go on. I'm a horticulturalist, not an electrical engineer, so I can't walk you through that. But the T5 light does need its own fixture and ballast. And sticking with one of the benefits of the T5 versus the T12 and the T8 is that for the T12 and T8, it's one fixture and one plug-in. So if you are doing 2 light fixtures on your rack, you need 2 separate plugins. So if you have a rack that's 3 shelves high, you need 12 separate plugins, a power strip to get all that light going. The T5 lights, you can daisy chain them. You can connect up to, I think, 3 or 4. The package will tell you how many that you can daisy chain. So that way you can have a nice light unit with only one plugin. So there is that advantage. Then there's the compact fluorescents. These are just the tube lights that have been squeezed down to have a shorter width. They are not used in the garden center or the garden industry very often because, again, you need your own separate ballast, and they don't provide a lot of light over a huge area. If you have a compact fluorescent unit, you might be able to get a half of a flat of seeds underneath it to have the right amount of light. You can do it for some of your house plants, but the tube light, the shop light, is going to be a little bit better because you can get more plants, more flats. We're all plant people. We can't just grow one flat of plants. We're going to be growing multiple flats. So we're going to be using our shop light because you can get more lights underneath, not lights, more plants underneath them. And then we have the LED lights. LED lights are new on the market. They've been out about maybe about 10 years now. They produce less heat. That is one of their biggest claims to fame. Under an ideal growing condition and indoor growing condition, the lights are supposed to last for about 11 years. Now, some people have not had that type of luck for the greenhouse industry, where water is going to be an issue. Those lights don't last as long. Initially, those costs have been high. This little device on my slide would cost you around $200 to maybe $250. That was about 10 years ago. The other downfall of this, the light is only coming out in one direction, unlike a tube light where the light is being emitted in all directions. This light is only coming out in one direction. Not so much of an issue when we're talking about seed starting, because our plants are just directly underneath it. There are tube light replacements or LED light replacements for some of our fluorescent lights. You need to check the package. You can phase out your T5 bulbs as they burn out. You can replace them with the LED light that will just slide right into the current ballast system. So you need to take a look at it. Check the label to see if the two are compatible. It's something that you can phase out as your bulbs burn out. It's up to you. There are, like I said, the energy consumption is much less than our incandescent or our fluorescent lights. But one of the things that John was talking about earlier was bottom heat. You can stack our grow lights if you're using our traditional tube lights or traditional shop lights, and the heat rises. So you can have your seed flat above another rack, and that's going to give you some bottom heat that your plants are going to like. It does help keep the grow space a little bit warmer. Our LED lights don't produce a lot of heat. For any of you that what was it, earlier this December, here in Omaha, we had a snowstorm, and snow was blown into a lot of our traffic lights. A lot of cities have moved over to LED lights, and LED lights don't produce a lot of heat, so that snow stayed in those traffic lights for a couple days. So that kind of gives you a point of reference that they don't produce a lot of heat. But they are more energy efficient. You can swap them out. Just check the label of the package of the light to see if they're compatible with your current setup. The other thing that comes upon or benefit of LED lights is that you can daisy chain them. This means that you can line up multiple LED lights in one plug. It gives you a lot more flexibility. You're not fighting for plug-in space. So check the label on the light to make sure that to see how many you can plug end to end. So this is an added benefit. All right, I see that there's a question in here about 2 inches above the plant. The LED light that they purchased recommends 2 to 4. So yes, I will speak about this here in just a couple of minutes. So initially, back to this daisy chain, this helps us in the long run because we're able to plug in multiple lights without having to use up a bunch of power strips or worry about having our power strips trip, and we can still have a good amount of light. So when we are looking at LED lights to purchase, if we want to purchase them, we are not looking at wattage anymore. We're looking at lumens. We want good bright lights, and we're looking at kelvins. Again, for our seed starting, we want to be looking at between that 5 and 6,000 kelvins. That will help keep the plants a little bit more stocky and a little bit more robust. All right. Couple more questions. I'll answer those here in just a few minutes. If I can get there we go. If any of you are members of plant clubs or plant club groups on Facebook or social media, you might start seeing these adhesive strip lights for LED lights. When I first saw them, I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be wonderful. This is something that a fellow African violet grower did with their old T12 light, their shop light fixtures. And I was like, I'm going to do this. This is just phenomenal. I'm going to try it. This is how mine turned out. It's something that you don't think about. LED light, those strip lights just come in a one big long strip. And if you're trying to go back and forth to make a small area, it didn't work out. And as you can see, put them up, the stickiness didn't actually work very well. They did produce a good amount of bright light. I was happy with my plants. And then there are corners. I've discovered you can cut LED lights and you can go do 90-degree angles. Something that I tried, and one thing that they don't tell you is every time you cut it and you put in that 90-degree angle, the light intensity goes down. So as you get to this final strip, you can see right here, it is not as bright as that initial strip. So it's something that you might kind of have a little bit of fun with. There are now shop lights out there that are LED lights. This is 4,000 kelvins. So it is something that would be excellent for our seeds starting because it's on that bluer spectrum. It's going to keep our plants a little bit more robust and a little bit more stocky. When we look at grow lights, we don't want to just do one strip, especially when we're working with our seed starting. That one strip might be good for a couple plants, but your plants on the edges are going to grow towards the light. So we want to have, again, multiple lights spread out to help keep our plants from growing towards the center and leaning towards the light. So if you are going to do grow lights like LEDs, you're going to need multiple to help keep the plants from growing to the center. There are lots of different ways you can make these fixtures. But one of the things that you can do, if you go online, if you Google PVC light stands, you're going to get a lot of different recipes and diagrams on how to make your own light stand. That way you don't have to go out and buy a metal utility shelving unit. You can make your own. Might be something that you want to try, might not. One of the benefits is, not benefits, but one of the needs that you're going to want is have a chain so you can raise and lower your lights. And here is just a couple more examples of the metal utility shelves. Works very well. A lot of times these shelves you can buy on Facebook Marketplace. Some of our discount stores have these on Black Friday sales. Nothing says I love you like going on a Black Friday sale to buy utility shelves. And here are just, like I said, a couple more options. This one here, this is an African violet grower. They're using the LED strip lights, but you can really get a lot more space in there. It's kind of fun. You can have a lot of options out there. So when it's in the pod, we're talking about distance from the plant. Our plants that we are starting to transplant outdoors are full sun plants. Tomatoes are a full sun, all day sun plant. We are trying to mimic and replicate an outdoor environment indoors. So we need to have that light intensity to be close to the plant. So if it's beyond a foot, we are going to start losing a lot of our light intensity. So we want to have that light at least a foot down to 2 inches. that's going to help keep those plants from stretching towards the light. So at that 2 inches, what we're doing is preventing those plants from growing and reaching towards the light. We also need to keep in mind that our fluorescent lights do produce heat. So as those plants do grow to the top of the, not to the top, but closer to the lights, we do need to raise it, or else we're going to have our tomato plants trying to grow into the light bulb. It can get messy, you can damage those plants. So we need to keep those plants close. And here is just an example again that this is a nice close. It's going to help keep those plants more short, more robust, sturdier. If that light is further away, our plants are going to start stretching. They're going to need some staking, they might need some support, or you might just have to start over again. So we want to keep those lights close to it, to the plants. Grow lights need to be on. John talked about this initially, depending on the plant. Some plants do need light for germination. Check that package. It's going to tell you if it needs to be, if it needs those added light for germination, or can we keep it in the dark on the top of our refrigerator? So, but once those plants germinate, we need about 16 to 18 hours of light. So get yourself a timer. It makes life so much easier. Timers are, depending on how much you want to spend, you can get timers now that you can connect to your smartphone to set those schedules, to see if the lights are turned on or off. So there's a lot of fun that you can do, but timers make your life a lot easier. So that way you're not worrying about turning on your lights if you're late for work. You don't have to worry about if you forget to turn them on. All right. I know that I wanted to keep this really simple and short, and I'm going to start going through these questions. What is the best for seed starting? Shop lights are going to work. That T12.
Okay, I didn't want to watch the seed one.
You're going to have that T8 or that T12 light is going to be your best option. And then, yes, so we look, this is Sarah's question about keeping the lights 2 inches above the plant. That's to keep the plant nice and short and squatty. If we get anything higher, we're going to start getting that stretching. So at least 1 foot to 2 inches. All right, let me go down. Light at the concept of volume, that is very true. Some lights, I didn't want to touch upon that because there's a lot that goes into when we're looking at lights. You can almost look at light, plants need a certain amount of light. T12 lights just are not going to produce that much light for our plants. So move to T8 or T5, you're going to get more light for your plant, so you don't have to have it on as long. Also, lighting on my plants. All right. When it comes to the red and blue light, there's a lot of research that's going into it. And there's some conflicting research that's actually coming out saying our school of thought is starting to change. Typically, we used to believe, or we followed, that red light was needed to help induce flowers. Blue light was for vegetative growth. That is being debated right now, but that's kind of how that works. Some growers will put in a warmer light, a lower Kelvin, along with a higher Kelvin light in the same fixture, so that way you can get that balance. That might work with you. Another question.
Yeah, there's some research, Scott. So people that grow microgreens or do like the vertical farming where there's like, very intensive production, they've done the like red and blue. So it's like the purple light to get that. They're actually finding, and it's weird, if they stick a few green LEDs in there, that the plants do much better. And it's weird because we've always been told the plants do not absorb green light. But what that does is that pulls the Kelvin together, and it's not like a white light, but it's not that bright purple light. It's more of a muted sort of pinkish light. And so there's some research emerging in that. So you can either do like the pure white LEDs, or you can do the red and blue, or the newer professional versions have red, blue, and like green or yellow in them.
Yeah, the research is pretty darn fascinating right now. Drake asked the question about the daily light integral. That is a really good question. We want to keep this simple. These are seedlings that we are going to be transplanting outdoors. These are plants that we are not trying to get into the flowering stage. These are plants that we're just trying to get them up, growing, so we can harden them off outside and put into the ground. So that daylight integral is beyond the scope of this presentation, but it would be something that we could touch on later if we go into talk about flowering plants for house plants. But for practical purposes for seed starting, it's not that big of an issue. We're going back up. Wendy. The lumens are going to should be on the package of how many lumens. If it's 40 watt, you're going to be getting a good amount of lumens, so you should be fine there. How do you find out the 6 to 18 hours with daylight and distance changes and sun coming through the window? That is a really good question, Pat. And I don't know if I have a good answer for you. Keep it simple. A lot of times, a lot of you have already been doing seed starting for quite some time. I like to tell people, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So what's working for you, you might want to stick with it. I just don't have a good answer for you. John, do you have any thoughts about
typically if I'm doing that, like I have some plants like going over to house plants, like they're near the window, but I know that they need more light than what they're getting through the window. I typically don't really take into consideration the light coming into the window when I'm like scheduling the light. Like it might not be as intense of a light. Like I don't have very bright lights on my plants, but I will, still schedule them for like the, 12, 16, 18 hours. And I typically have it coincide with the daylight hours outside, so that, if I have like some of my grow lights come on at like 6 a.m. and they'll go off at around, like 8 p.m. So that gives them like 14 hours of light, that have supplemented, especially in the winter, because some days it's dark and you hardly get any light in the window. So I just think, when scheduling time, just do it during daylight hours, but I don't add that into my calculation.
The next question was talk about wattage. T5 lights use 54 watts. Now, if you're switching over to an LED light, we're not looking at wattage. We're looking at lumens. We're looking at a typical T5 light produces 10,000 lumens. So when you're looking at an LED light, you're going to be looking at a 10,000 lumen LED light. So we're not looking at wattage. So I hope that answered that one. The one about eye protection with LEDs, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think that is an issue. Of course, you wouldn't want to be staring at your lights, but I don't think that you need any special protection. They're not emitting UVA or UVB wavelengths, so you're going to be fine there. What else? Are there other questions I may have missed?
I saw in the chat, Terry is basically supplementing the daylight. She has a bright window. And so during the winter, days are shorter. So she has her lights come on at 5 p.m. and go to 10 p.m. So basically, she's just extending the daylight. You could think of it that way. So I did launch the poll. If you have a chance to do that, please do so.
A good lumen, Martha asked about lumen range for seedlings. We're talking about, again, we're talking about plants that are full sun, all day sun. Peppers, I mean, tomatoes, a lot of times we're starting indoors. So we want about 20,000 lumens.
And we have a question from Megan about, in early pictures, you showed a starter box with foil. And she starts seeds in the dark. Would this help maximize light? Yeah. So that is like anytime we have a ballast or something and we have something that is reflective, like if we have a fluorescent light, some of that light goes up out of the direction of the seedling. If we have a reflective surface, that points it back down toward the seeds. So reflective surfaces for lights like that are good, whether it's your ballast or you create that with aluminum foil or a mirror or something like that.
And the question about the T12s, do you need more than 16 hours of light to maximize the volume of light available? Yes, for the T12 light, that does not produce a lot of, for lack of better me, it's not going to produce enough light for the seedlings. So if you're able to switch to T8 in your T12 unit, you sure could. That's going to give you more light than the T12 light would. T8 lights can be used in a T12 unit.
So I got a question, is it okay to put my seedlings near a patio door but have them under shop lights for extra light? Absolutely. In winter, you're going to want to supplement your light for, if you're trying to grow like outdoor stuff indoors during the winter, you're definitely going to want some sort of light. We had another question about an indoor herb garden. Should we move the lights away? No, they need lights as well. That'll make you asked about basil being greener. That'll make your basil greener.
Right.
That'll help your herbs grow.
And like I said, this is just generally because we're looking at moving our plants outdoors. If we were looking to actually do indoor farming, that could be a whole nother topic on grow lights. But for seed starting, simple is better. And don't forget to, if you are using natural light, don't forget to rotate your flats of plants because they are going to grow towards the window. And when winter happens, we are in winter, stick your hand between the window and the plants. If it's cold for your hand, it's going to be cold for your plant. So that's something to think about as well.